Greystone was the kind of town that didn't need directions. If you grew up there, you could walk it blind. One main road, 2 churches, a school that hadn't been renovated since the 80s, and neighborhoods where everyone knew who belonged and who didn't. People left sometimes, but the town stayed the same. Christmas was when that sameness felt comforting instead of stale. Every year, on Christmas Eve, the town gathered at the Methodist church just after sunset for the caroling walk. Families bundled up, kids clutching battery-powered candles, adults holding thermoses of coffee or cider. They walked the same route every year, sang the same songs, and ended the night back at the church for cookies and quiet conversation. 8-year-old Lily Moore loved it more than anyone. She practiced the songs weeks in advance, corrected her parents when they messed up the lyrics, and insisted on holding her own candle, even when the plastic flickered weakly in the cold. That year, she wore a blue coat that was still a little too big, and mittens her grandmother had mailed from out of state. She swung her candle as she walked, humming when she forgot the words. The air that night was cold but calm. Snow hadn't fallen yet, though the ground was frozen hard enough to crunch under boots. Streetlights cast soft orange halos that barely reached the tree line. Beyond the last houses, the woods swallowed everything whole. The group moved slowly through the neighborhood, voices overlapping in uneven harmony. Lily walked between her parents, her small hands tucked into theirs. Halfway through Silent Night, Lily let go of her mother's hand. Her parents didn't notice immediately. Someone behind them made a joke. Her father laughed. Her mother turned her head to respond. It couldn't have been more than 30 seconds. When her mother finally looked down, her hand closed around nothing. At first, there was no fear. "Lily," her mother called, glancing around casually. She probably ran ahead. Her father jogged forward a few steps, scanning the group. "Lily, you up front." No answer. The singing continued for a few more seconds before faltering. Conversations slowed. People started looking around instead of ahead. A few parents grabbed their children's hands tighter. Then Lily's father raised his voice. The singing stopped completely. Flashlights came out. Names were called louder now, sharp and edged with panic. Someone ran ahead toward the church. Someone else turned back, toward the last street they'd passed. Lily's mother dropped to her knees when she saw the candle. It was still on, placed carefully on the curb beside a parked sedan, standing upright like it had been set down on purpose. A few inches away, resting neatly on top of it, was one of Lily's mittens, folded in half, not dropped, placed. That's when the panic became real. Police arrived within minutes. The route was sealed off. Officers spread out through the neighborhood, knocking on doors, checking yards, garages, sheds. Volunteers formed search lines and pushed into the woods behind the houses, flashlights sweeping through branches and brush. There were no footprints, not in the dirt, not in the frost, not leading away from the curb, not leading toward the trees. Search dogs were brought in before midnight. They circled the area where the candle had been found, confused, then stopped entirely as if the trail simply ended. By morning, the story was everywhere. Greystone didn't have a local news station, but reporters from neighboring counties arrived anyway. Lily's picture appeared on social media feeds and missing person posters within hours. The town watched itself become a headline. Days passed, then weeks. No witnesses came forward. No security cameras caught anything useful. The car beside the candle belonged to an elderly couple who hadn't left their house all evening. Everyone who'd walked near Lily was interviewed. Nothing stood out. What bothered investigators wasn't just the lack of evidence. It was the order. Children don't usually leave things behind neatly. They drop them, they lose them, they scatter them. Lily's candle and mitten looked like they'd been arranged by someone who wanted them to be seen. The town changed after that. Christmas decorations came down early. Parents stopped letting kids walk anywhere alone. People avoided the street where Lily vanished. The woods behind the neighborhood became something people didn't look at directly anymore. A month later, Lily's father received a voicemail. The number was blocked. At first, it was nothing but static. Then came singing. Children's voices, distant and uneven, as if recorded in a large empty space. Silent night, holy night. At the end, one voice lingered, small, close, "Daddy." The call lasted 11 seconds. Police traced it to a disconnected payphone 2 counties away. The phone hadn't been used in years. There were no fingerprints, no witnesses, no cameras pointing in the right direction. Lily's parents stopped speaking to reporters after that. Spring came late. Summer passed. School started again without her. Her desk stayed empty longer than necessary. Teachers avoided saying her name. Years later, the Moore family moved away. The caroling walk still happens. People still show up. Candles still glow. But no children walk anymore. And no one sings that song. The Alderbrook Christmas Parade was the one event that made the town feel larger than it really was. Once a year, Main Street filled with floats, music, artificial snow, and crowds thick enough that you couldn't see the pavement beneath your feet. It was loud, chaotic, and overwhelming, but people loved it because it felt safe, familiar, controlled. 5-year-old Noah Bennett had been talking about the parade for weeks. He'd memorized the route, asked nonstop questions about the floats, and insisted on wearing the red scarf his grandmother had knitted the year before she died. It was too long for him and kept slipping down his chest, but he refused to take it off. When the parade started, Noah rode on his father's shoulders, laughing every time candy bounced off the pavement. He waved at every character costume, every marching band member, every float like they were there just for him. When Santa's float came into view, Noah squirmed. "Dad, put me down. I want to wave." His father hesitated for a moment, then set him down and took his hand. The crowd pressed in from all sides, but his grip was firm. They moved closer to the curb as the float approached. Then someone bumped into them. It wasn't aggressive, just a shoulder brushing past in a crowd full of people doing the same thing. His father staggered half a step, tightened his grip instinctively, then felt empty air. Noah's hand was gone. At first, his father thought Noah had slipped behind him. He turned, calling his name casually, already stepping backward. No answer. He spun in a slow circle, scanning the crowd. Panic crept in fast, sharp and cold. He started shouting. Security was alerted. The parade stalled mid-block as people craned their necks, confused and irritated. Noah was nowhere. Surveillance footage later showed the moment that haunted investigators. Noah stood alone at the curb for exactly 12 seconds. He wasn't crying, he wasn't screaming. He was just standing there, clutching the scarf at his chest, looking up and down the street as if trying to decide what to do. Then a man dressed as an elf knelt beside him. The costume looked professional. Bright green fabric, striped tights, curled shoes, nothing out of place. The man's face was partially obscured by a pointed hat and fake ears. The elf leaned in close, spoke to Noah briefly, and placed a hand on his shoulder. For 4 seconds, the camera's view was blocked by a passing float. When the view cleared, both of them were gone. Noah's disappearance triggered an immediate lockdown. Every performer was detained. Every float searched. Security reviewed hours of footage from surrounding businesses and traffic cameras. The elf did not appear anywhere else. No costume like it was logged in the parade inventory. No volunteer or performer was unaccounted for. No one reported a stolen outfit. Witness descriptions conflicted wildly. Some said the elf was tall. Others swore he was short. One woman insisted she heard him tell Noah, "Your mom sent me." Noah's mother had died the year before, after a long illness. Another witness said the elf sounded like he was crying. Police followed every lead anyway. Homes were searched. Known offenders were questioned. Nothing stuck. Days passed. Then weeks. The Bennett house filled with casseroles and quiet voices. Noah's room stayed exactly the same. His scarf hooked by the door remained empty. 2 weeks after the parade, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was Noah's scarf, freshly washed, folded neatly. It smelled faintly of pine and peppermint, scents Noah's parents didn't use in their home. The police tested it. No usable DNA. No fibers that led anywhere. Nothing. The scarf was placed back in Noah's room, where it stayed. Life moved forward the way it always does, even when it shouldn't. The parade returned the next year. Parents kept their children closer. Some skipped it entirely. The city quietly reduced the number of costumed performers and added more security. No elves were allowed to kneel near children anymore. Every December, Noah's parents received anonymous Christmas cards. No message, no signature. Just a printed image of a snowy street. They stopped opening them after the third year. Noah was never found. Some people say the parade feels wrong now. Too quiet beneath the noise. Too many eyes watching. And every year, when Santa's float rolls past, parents grip their children's hands just a little tighter. Because in a crowd that loud, it only takes 12 seconds. The snow started falling 3 days before Christmas, and didn't stop the way snow usually does. It didn't rush or howl. It came down steady and patient, like it had time. By the second morning, the town was buried. Roads were impassable, schools were cancelled indefinitely, and the news stations started calling it a historic winter event. For the kids, it felt like a miracle. 10-year-old Evan Carter woke up before his parents that morning and pressed his face to the window. The cul-de-sac outside his house was completely white, smooth and untouched, except for the faint outline of mailboxes and the tops of parked cars. He ran back to his room, pulled on layers, and waited until his parents were awake enough to notice him hovering. After breakfast, they let him go outside. He promised he'd stay close. He always did. The cul-de-sac was ringed by houses on 3 sides and woods on the 4th. The woods had always been there, quiet and dark, even in summer. But Evan knew better than to go past the tree line. At 10:42 a.m., Mrs. Henley from across the street waved to him from her kitchen window as he dragged a sled toward the center of the circle. At 10:43, Evan was gone. It took almost 10 minutes for anyone to realize something was wrong. Snow-muffled sound. People stayed inside. It wasn't tea until Evan's mother stepped onto the porch to call him in for cocoa that she noticed the cul-de-sac was empty. They found his boots first. They were at the edge of the woods, placed side by side, toes pointing toward the trees. Not tossed, not kicked off. Set down neatly, like someone had taken the time to line them up. There were no footprints, not leading into the woods, not leading back toward the houses. The snow around the boots was smooth and undisturbed, as if nothing had passed through it at all. Search teams arrived within the hour. Volunteers formed lines and moved through the woods, stepping carefully, calling Evan's name until their voices grew hoarse. Dogs were brought in, but they circled the boots in confusion before sitting down and refusing to move. It was like Evan had vanished straight up into the air. Days passed. The snow didn't melt. Temperatures stayed just low enough to preserve everything exactly as it was. Spring came late that year, hesitant and thin. Snowbanks lingered into April. When the ground finally softened, there was still nothing to find. Then the phone calls started. They were short voicemails, always from blocked numbers, always late at night. At first, it was just wind. Then came the sound of snow crunching underfoot, then breathing. One message ended with a child whispering, "It's still snowing." Evan's parents stopped answering the phone entirely. Years went by. Winters in the town changed after that. Some years, snow barely fell at all. Other years, it came heavy and stayed too long. People joked nervously about it. Someone always brought Evan up when the snow piled high enough. Remember that winter. Nobody ever finished the sentence. 7 years later, during a rare warm winter, construction crews began clearing land near the woods for new houses. The snow had receded far enough to expose ground that hadn't seen daylight since Evan disappeared. That's when they found the fort. It was collapsed now, little more than packed snow and branches sunk into the earth, but the shape was unmistakable. Inside were Evan's gloves, stiff and gray with age, a candy cane, bleached white, and a calendar page torn from December. Every day after Christmas had been crossed out carefully. The last date circled was March 14th. No remains were ever found. Some winters now pass without snow, others don't. And when it snows too much, too long, people wonder who's still waiting for it to stop.